Hey everybody, today I'm going to go over how to build your own drive mode switch for your RMAX 1000. If you've bought the base model RMAX, it doesn't come with the switch, and you can buy one from Yamaha for $300, or you can build your own, or I sell these also, so I've got a link below where you can buy it yourself if you don't want to go through all of the building. So what I'll go over today is the material that you'll need, the tools, and then the steps to assemble the switch. I get these custom covers made so it looks a little more OEM, and then the way that I wire the switch up is so that all of the lights are on at the same time. You can do it however you like, but if you kind of use the default wiring schematic that the switch comes with, just the switch position you're in will illuminate, and I think it just looks better if all of them are on at the same time. So let's get started. So starting off with the tools, you're gonna need a certain type of crimpers for the connectors that we'll be working with. And by the way, all of this stuff, I'll have links to it down below. So yeah, crimpers, some flush cuts or some kind of wire cutters, wire stripper. I prefer this style of wire stripper where it has the different sizes, the different wire sizes labeled on it. I've used these before, but they're not as precise. So I would, if you don't have any already, I would avoid these and go with something like this. You'll need a lighter, a multimeter, and then a power supply or a battery, a 12-volt battery. The power supply is used to test the light portion of the switch, and then the multimeter is used to test the functionality of the switch to make sure you have it pinned correctly, where when you push the switch into the sport mode is activated. When you push it into the crawl, it's activated. So you'll want to validate it before you plug it into your machine. Forceps, you can use needle nose pliers as well. You may or may not need these, so these aren't too critical, but sometimes those connectors can give you a little bit of trouble, and so that helps out quite a bit. You'll need a measuring tape and some type of, you could use a small Allen wrench for this, but I use this small screwdriver, and that's to push the existing seals out of the plugs that you're going to be using. And then if you're going to go the custom switch route, so if you're going to buy one of these switches and switch it out, you'll want to get this switch removal tool. It really helps out to get this switch cover off. So now we'll move on to the material you're going to need. What you're going to do is you're going to reuse some existing connectors that come on your machine. So when you remove the 9 bolts, I believe it is, to get access to behind your dash, there'll be 9 bolts that you'll remove from your firewall, and that'll give you access to behind the dash where your drive mode switch connects. You'll find some harnesses back there. You'll find several harnesses, I think there's 4 or 5 of them, that have plugs like this already in them, and those are just your accessory plugs. You can use those to connect relays or other switches, lights, things like that. They all run to, I believe, a 15 or 20 amp fuse, single fuse, so you can't go crazy with them. You can't run a high-powered stereo system or something like that. But so yeah, you'll reuse one of these plugs that's already on your machine, and then you'll reuse this 4-position plug that's the one that actually controls your different drive modes. So those you'll reuse, but what you'll need is the actual crimp pins and the seals that go with those. So those you'll have to buy. You'll need 5 of them, but I would recommend getting more than that, just for if this is your first time working with something like this, you might mess some of them up. So I'd probably get at least 10 of those, because the shipping is going to be more than the pins cost. So I would just get at least 10 or so. Then you'll need also the seals. So, and you'll need 7 of the quarter inch quick connects. These are 18 to 22 gauge. So those are pretty common. You'll need 7 of those. I prefer the version that does not have the insulation on them. I just think they look better when you install them with the heat shrink, versus some of them come with the really large insulation, plastic insulation on them, and I just prefer the look of those better. It's a little more work, but I like it better. You'll also need 7 pieces of 1/4 inch diameter, 4:1 shrink ratio with the adhesive in it, heat shrink tubing. So they're 1 inch long. You'll need 7 of those. Next thing is you'll need the expandable sleeving. Cut this to 31.5 inches long. So you can get that on a roll. It's going to come with probably way more than what you need, but 31 inches is what you'll need for that. And you can probably go shorter with it. I go a little bit longer with mine. It gives you a little more freedom to route your wires a specific way if you want to, or choose one of the further switch ports on your dashboard. So you could go a little shorter than that. Then you'll need wire. This is 20 gauge stranded wire with PVC insulation. You'll want to cut this to 34.5 inches long. I use this, I get it in 5 different colors. So red, green, blue, yellow, and black. And so that makes it a lot easier once you have it installed into this expandable sleeve. It's just a lot easier to make your connections on each end, and you don't have to tone it out with your multimeter or anything like that. So 34.5 inches long on this. And then you'll need 2 additional pieces that are 2 inches long. I usually use red, but I don't have any red at the time, so we'll use blue. It doesn't matter, but 2 inches long, 2 of these. You'll also need a switch. So this switch here is a double pole, double throw. It's got 7 pins on the back, on, off, on. You'll want to make sure you don't get a momentary switch. Momentary means that would be something you'd use for like a winch, where when you push it down, it'll automatically spring back to the middle. You don't want that. You want the switch that stays in each position. Another thing to look out for is if you're planning on putting a custom cover on it like this, you'll want to stay away from these switches that look the same, but the CE mark on them is smaller. Those covers do not work with these. So the two ways you can identify these is the larger CE mark, and then this gasket right here is thicker. This one has a thinner, flimsy gasket, small CE mark. Stay away from this guy. Make sure you get this one. If you're not going to put a custom cover on it, you can get either one. Either one will work just fine. And then that brings us to the actual custom rocker cover. To me, it just looks better if you put something like this on there. It looks a little more OEM instead of just having a blue switch up on your dash. That, I mean, if you care about that kind of thing, you'll get this. If you don't, you won't. So now on to the assembly steps, first thing you'll want to do is these pins come on these strips like this. So you'll need to remove those. The easiest way to do that is with your flush cuts or wire cutters. You can bend them back and forth until they break off, kind of like you do with a paper clip, but flush cuts is the easiest way. Get those guys cut up. Next thing you'll want to do is, what I do with my wire after you cut it to 34.5 inches long is I wrap a piece of tape around one end of it, get the lengths pretty close to the same, and that makes it a lot easier to thread it through this. So after you cut this to your 31.5 inches long, what you'll want to do, that's where your lighter comes in. You'll just want to melt the ends of it just very briefly. Don't get too carried away with it. You'll just as soon as you start to see it kind of deform a little bit, that's good enough. That just keeps these ends together a little bit, so as you do spread them out, this doesn't start fraying and coming apart. So after you've done that, just start by threading in, and then you can just expand it out, grab it, slide it down, and just work it all the way through. Once you get it out, make sure your sleeve is fully extended, and then compare your lengths. That's pretty close. Maybe go a little bit longer on this one, but you want to have an equal amount of wire hanging out each end. So after you do that, you get 2 pieces of your heat shrink. You slide it on one end. This can be a little bit tricky, but it does go on. And you'll slide a piece over the other end. One tool I did not mention at the beginning, and you could use your lighter for this if you want, but it just works a lot better if you have a good heat gun. I don't know, this one's pretty good. It's you can control your temperature and your fan speed, so that helps with not melting this plastic sheathing, and then having a concentrated tip like this on the end also helps. So I set this to 450 Fahrenheit, and it does a good job of shrinking the heat shrink and then activating the adhesive inside it without melting anything else. So what you'll want to do is you can just feel with your fingers when this sleeving is about in the center of the heat shrink tubing, and then hit it with your heat gun. You'll want to keep it on there until you'll see the adhesive inside it activate and start to ooze out, and that's what you're looking for. So it'll shrink down, and then the adhesive will start coming out the ends, and so what it'll do is it'll lock this heat shrink tubing onto this adhesive. It'll lock this heat shrink tube onto the expandable sleeve and to your wires, so this won't slide around. Turns out really nice. And then just go ahead and do the other side as well. At that point, you can remove the tape from the end, and then now what you'll want to do is use your flush cuts, get your wires pulled until pull your wires up like this, and cut them off so they're all the same length. So whatever your shortest one is, just cut them off to that length. Do that on both ends. So we'll do these plugs first. So we'll need 5 of the pins and 5 of the seals. I got a few more than I need here, but so before you strip your wires, go ahead and put your seals on. So each one of these wires will get one of these black seals, and they go on in a certain direction. You want to put the larger diameter end on first. Like so. After you do that, strip off the ends. So if you haven't worked with pins like this a lot before, so this area right here is where your bare wire lands, and then these two sides get crimped down on top of it, and then this part back here grabs your seal, and so it gets closed down on this rubber seal. And so what you want is you want to have wire insulation underneath the seal here, but you just want to have bare wires at this point. So you might want to practice with this a few times so you don't just keep stripping wire off to get it to the right length. So for this one, you'd want to strip your wire right in this area. And what that'll look like is and kind of like with a haircut, take a little bit off and look at it, and then try again if you need to. Take too much off, you can't put it back on. So this looks like it's going to be good. I've got the wire enough exposed wire underneath the crimp area, and then where my seal's going to go, there's insulation under that, so that's a good length there. And so what I do is I just go ahead and once I have my length down, I just go through and do them all at once. So then you'll get your crimpers, and we'll be using the 20 to 18 gauge size, so it's this one in the middle. You'll want to put it in there where this part, this crimp area, that's what's going to be inside the crimpers. So, and what I do is I just put just enough pressure on it to hold it in place. So you'll hold the crimp in your wire, in your crimper, and then make sure, what you want to make sure is that you do not get any of your insulation under that crimp area. So just pay close attention to that. Give it a squeeze. Give it the old pull test. So that's what you're looking for. Then you'll slide your seal up like that. I usually pre-bend it a little bit with my fingers. So I'll just give it a squeeze with my fingers like that. And then I'll put it in this one's marked seal on my crimpers. So you squeeze down on that. Sometimes I can feel that it bends the pin a little bit whenever I crimp it. So sometimes if the pin feels like it's bent down, I'll just bend it back up with my finger. So this is what you look like when you're done. So your seal is sealed on your wire insulation, and then you do not have any of the wire insulation under the crimp area. And then you'll do that for the rest of them. Okay, so after you have that done, this is what you'll end up with. You'll have all 5 of your wires with those pins on there. You want to make sure you do a pull test on all of them and make sure that your crimp is done well. So now that you're ready to install these, what you're going to want to do is, looking at your 4 connector plug from this end, you're going to remove this plug, and this plug. This one you'll leave in there. So this is where you can use an Allen wrench, tiny screwdriver like this, just anything that's small enough to get in and push those plugs out. So leave this one in there, and just for reference, see I've got the locking feature of the connector on the top. So looking at it from this end. So push those out, and that's what you'll end up with. And then on your 2-pin connector, they both come out. So just push both of those plugs out. So this right here is how you wire it up. So this is the back of your switch. Your switch has 7 pins on it. So black goes on the top, green, blue, yellow, red, red, red. On your 4 connector with the locking feature at the top, like I have shown here, green, yellow, blue, plug stays in there like this. And then these two notches here, with those on the top, you'll have red on the right, black on the left. So you just start pinning those in that fashion. Good. I should elaborate on this before I get started. If you look in there, I don't know if we'll be able to see it on here. Yeah, you can see it. You can see the locking feature in each one of these holes is on the top in this view. So when you look at your pins, this top part of your pin is what interfaces with that. So with this, see the locking features on the top on this guy? Make sure that you have your pin facing up like this when you stick it in there. So I'm real big on double checking your work. Looking at it from this side, got red on the right, black on the left. For this guy, we got green, and you'll hear it snap. Your seal will slide in there, and then you'll hear it snap, and then at that point you can't pull it back out. There is a way you can release it if you do mess up. You can get a small screwdriver like this, and there is a tab in there that you can lift up on to release and pull it out. You don't want to do that too many times. You want to avoid it if you can, but if you do that too many times, then it'll weaken that locking feature in there, and your pins may not stay in there. If you're concerned about that whenever you're buying these, it may not be a bad idea to throw a couple of these in your cart as well. I can put links to those as well. So if you want to get some of those for just in case, they're a few bucks a piece. So we got green, yellow, and blue. So those went in easily. Let's double check. Green, yellow, blue. Yep, it matches. From time to time, you'll stick one of these in there, and you'll have it in there the right way, but it just won't go through. So I didn't have to do it here, but that's where I'll use these forceps. I'll reach in there, grab one of those pins, and you have to pull on it and it'll pull in and snap. Didn't have to do that here. All right, so now we'll start working on the connectors for the switch side of the harness. So we'll need 7 of these 1/4 inch quick connect. So these aren't as, it's not as critical as to the amount of wire that you strip for these. They'll only go in so far and bottom out. You want to make sure that you've got enough stripped off so that you don't have any insulation inside your crimp, which I don't think it'll fit. But so with these same wire strippers, they have this crimping feature on them as well. So so what you'll want to do here is, if you're wanting to wire it up like I was describing earlier, where it has the jumpers, you'll want to put a crimp pin on all of the connectors except the red. So got all those on except the red. Now to make the jumper wire, you'll get those 2-inch pieces and strip the ends of those. And what you'll want to do with those is you'll twist 2 of them together. You'll need to get that pretty tight, because what you're going to do is you're going to put both of those into a single connector. So get both of them in there like so, and go ahead and crimp it on. So you end up with that. And then down below, you'll put a single one on. And so you'll end up with something like that. And last but not least, you're gonna put this on with your red, like so. It's kind of hard to see, but you'll twist it on with your red like you did on the middle connector. Slide your connector on. And crimp that guy. So this is what your harness will look like. You'll have green, yellow, black, and blue on a single connector, and then red will have this 3-headed monster on it. All right, we're almost to the end. At this point, I'm gonna cover putting a custom switch cover on, and then we'll get to installing the harness on your switch. So to remove the rocker cover that these come with, you'll take this removal tool, and the place that I use to purchase these is, you can get these for a couple dollars from that same place. So highly recommend it. So what you want to do is it's going to be hard to see, but there's two tabs underneath here that this tool interfaces with, and it's kind of hard to mess it up. So you just want to just go slow and look on both sides and make sure you can see that it's getting underneath that tab and not going on the outside of it on both sides. And you just keep pushing, put a little bit of pressure on it, kind of wiggle it back and forth, and it'll just pop right off. So these holes right here and this connector interface with these pins on there. Sometimes I'll have trouble getting these newer ones on. They can take a little massaging sometimes, so what I'll do is I'll get a little file, and I've already done it to this one. I'll just knock that hard corner off with a file. Don't take a lot off, but I don't know if you'll be able to notice, but you can see I've knocked this corner off just a little bit with a file. So whenever you put these connectors, this cover on, you'll want to start with it on the non-filed side. And then you'll push the filed side down as well. And it may not go on there. These can be a pain to get on there. The manufacturer of these, they have a disclaimer on their site that says it does not work with CE labeled rocker switches, that you're only supposed to use it with the Carling brand name switches. I've tried several different switch bodies out and figured out that it can go on these, but it doesn't go on there as easily as the one that it comes with. So just know that going into it. You might have to fiddle with it a little bit, but you can look in there and you'll see that the tab that it interfaces with, it'll slide over there and lock on both sides. And so there you go, that's that. Before you connect these, this is where the rest of your 1-inch long heat shrink tubing pieces come in. You'll put a piece on each one of these. For this guy, kind of tricky to get it to go in there, but it does work. So you want to slide it on where you can see a little bit of the connector hanging out. You just need it on there enough where it'll stay on its own and not fall off while you're installing it. So get the heat shrink tubing on all of these. And what I do, looking at the back side of the switch, the 7th pin up here on the top, that's your negative for your lights. So make sure that's on the top, and then I start with the red wire that has the 3 connectors on it. I start with this one that's by itself, put it on the bottom on this left side, so this location, and then work your way up. And so you'll get those 3 on there like that. And then I'll start with the yellow on the bottom here. Make sure you have it slid all the way down, it'll bottom out. Blue in the middle. Next is green, right here. And the black. So that's what you'll end up with. So the way this works is your black, which is this, that's your negative, and then your red is your positive for the 12 volt, and all that does is it lights up your switch. So by connecting this here and this here, it just lights up both lights on the switch. This blue is a ground, so it goes in the middle. Yellow is sport mode, green is crawl. So when you push your switch up to the sport mode, what it does is it connects the ground in the middle with the yellow. When you put it down into the crawl mode, it connects the ground with the green. So all it's doing is grounding out this green wire and grounding out this yellow wire. And that's what activates the different modes. When it's in the middle, and neither one of these, sport or crawl, is not grounded or activated, you're in trail mode. So after you got those on there, you'll need to heat shrink, and you'll need to pay attention a little bit to this so that you don't get it too hot and don't melt anything. But what I'll do is I usually start out with the heat shrink on the back side of these and let it kind of go into them, and because I like to shrink this end down first so it shrinks down on the wire, and then I'll come down and add a little more heat closer to the switch. And just once you start to see the adhesive activating on each side, then that's all you need. What you may need to do, sometimes it doesn't get all the way down on your wire, but since it has that adhesive in it, you can push on it a little bit, and then the adhesive will stick to your wire, and so it seals the ends of it off nicely. Let that cool for a little bit. Switch is complete. Now all we need to do is test it before we install it. I've made a little harness for my power supply that plugs directly into these. So we can turn this light off so you can see a little better. So the light part of it works. Now we just need to check the actual drive mode switch functionality, and so this is where your multimeter comes into use. Looking at your switch from this end, from the connector end, the bottom left is going to be your ground, and then the top two is going to be, so top left is sport mode, top right is crawl. So you'll put one of your leads on the ground, which is the bottom left, and then you'll check top left, you should get nothing. Check top right, you should get nothing. That's with the switch and crawl mode. So now what I'm going to do is put it to sport mode. Sport mode, this top left pin, it should tone when I touch it. There you go. Top right should do nothing. Now switch it down to crawl. Top left should do nothing, so that's good. Top right lets you know you've got continuity there. So that's it. Now you just install it behind your dash. So like I said in the beginning, I've got links to where you can purchase all of the tools needed to do this, as well as the components that you're gonna need. I also have a link where you can buy the switch directly from me, like this, ready to install. Comes with installation instructions. I usually have a lot of these on hand, ready to ship at all times. So that's what I do, is make switches. So thanks for watching, and leave me some comments if you have any questions, and I'll try to help you out.